Rudy Gobert is one of the most hated, misunderstood players in the NBA. And, it could come down to whether or not you don't like him personally, whether or not he's taken away defensive players of the years from your favorite player. And that probably is just going to be Bam Adebayo. But he has historically been a player that many people just simply dislike. And we're not even going to talk about the guy that put him in the headlock. But there's an interesting thing about his game that I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate. And that is that, hey everybody, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are on the way to 1,000 subscribers. And honestly, I wouldn't be doing this content without you guys and your guys' support, all the great comments that I see each and every single video. But we want to bring more people to the family, so hit that subscribe button and let's get back to the video. Well, one, he's not bad. He's not terrible whatsoever. But the most important thing is that he's really good at the great things that he can do. Now, the only issues that he has is that he's really weak in a lot of other different areas. And we're going to break that down a little bit. So what are the great things that he does? One, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. I mean, if you just look at defensive ratings when he's on the court versus when he's off the court, or whatever teams he's on versus not on, you'll see that he typically raises the level for everybody. And so people kind of like don't see the nuances in the fact that even if he doesn't get a block shot, his gravity might affect a person who would probably take a regular layup into a floater that's a short miss. But Rudy Gobert allows the floor, the paint to be more clogged and to basically let their wing players and let their guard players play more side to side laterally, because if they get beat on the inside, Rudy Gobert is going to be there to pick up the mess. Now, that's always kind of been his role, but the areas in which he is weakened is the fact that he's really not that good when you go against small ball lineups. Historically, small ball lineups has basically had him on the perimeter, and we all kind of know what that looks like, especially when Luka Doncic had him on the perimeter for a game. And he's going to have to deal with that again. And then on top of that, his offensive game is simply not that great. He doesn't really have a post-up game. He's really wonky. And I think one of the more important things to kind of like speak about in terms of the weakness of Rudy Gobert is the fact that his coordination is a lot to be desired. He doesn't really have much going for him in that department. You can kind of see he looks like Bambi, like a person with two left feet, a person who could barely stay up, because he just simply he might be too tall for his own good. He doesn't understand his center of gravity. There's a lot of things there. I'm not a sports scientist, so I can't really tell you the nuances of that. But what you can see is that whenever he has to like utilize his feet in any sort of coordination, he just simply struggles. And then you'll see that a lot when it comes to him posting up, in which he does not do anymore. But there's one cool little thing that I've been noticing the past like 5-10 games for Rudy Gobert, is that he's actually been playing really good. Now, when they got Julius Randle, which I still believe is a terrible trade and definitely should not have been made, and you'll see in the playoffs whether or not he's going to be effective or not, I believe he probably won't. But when he came to the team was basically in shambles. They didn't really know how to work the Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle situation. And ideally, it's because the problems that they have this year is the same problems that they had last year, is that Rudy Gobert, since he has a very limited offensive skill set, he just makes everything harder. And you saw that in the beginning of this year where everything was hard. The Minnesota Timberwolves was definitely struggling to stay afloat, and were basically within like the 8, 9, 10 range where they was fighting to be in the play-in. But right now, you kind of see that, well, things have kind of levied out. But why exactly did it levy out? And that is because they have finally figured out how to make Rudy Gobert work in this offense. The best way that I can really explain how he has improved his game is a little bit of football analysis. When you are, and I know this is a basketball channel and you're not here for football, but when you are going against a zone and you are running any type of, let's say, like a drag route or a cross route in the field, a lot of times what coaches will tell you is settle up in the space. Don't just run to get covered, settle up in space. And that's something that Rudy Gobert has been doing a lot, where he's actually finding space within the court and settling there. Typically, whenever in the past a guard would try to go towards the basket, he would immediately go towards the basket as well. However, when a guard cuts towards the basket, you see he's kind of like settling in a space where the guard can easily see him, have his own man help to, take away the shot from the guard, but he's in a space where the pass is easier to make and he's not too far away from the rim. There's many times where I've seen him where he's actually going side by side within the dunker spot, running along the baseline to try to find which space to be in. And you know what has happened? His scoring has increased. At one point, he was shooting 19 points a game. And one thing to note, too, is actually when he starts and where he starts on the offensive possession. A lot of times back in the day, he would start more so in the paint. But now he's starting at the three-point line, whether it be him actually setting a screen or him just kind of like staying there waiting for the play to develop, and then he sprints whenever his man goes to help. Also, even if he's not, let's say, on the three-point line, a lot of the times he'll actually just kind of like stick by the elbow a little bit, and then once the same thing happens again, he just runs to the paint but actually stays within a decent amount of space where he can either get a pass very easily or get a putback, rebound, dunk, or whatever the case may be. And so he actually has elevated his team because they fixed the issue, at least on offense. Now, the issue on defense is still something that you're going to have to figure out, especially when you're going against small ball. But one of the best things about him is that, well, even though he can't really do much side to side laterally, they have basically made him the funnel. They funnel everybody to the paint, or at least they try to stay side to side, move laterally. But they know that if they can't stay in front of their man, that Rudy Gobert is going to be there to help. Now, going against the Lakers, that's going to be a little bit more problematic, but really not really, because it really depends on one specific player on the Lakers, where I believe that he's going to have to basically determine whether or not he can stay on the court or not. And that is going to be either Jared Vanderbilt or Jackson Hayes. The reason why I say that is because Jackson Hayes is basically kind of like the same similar player, but I think Rudy Gobert is like way, way better than Jackson Hayes. And I don't know if Jackson Hayes is going to be playing all too much in this outside of just to match the physicality and to get rebounds and to go against Rudy Gobert. However, I do think that they will, because the Lakers has pretty much just said we're going to run small ball, are going to start Jared Vanderbilt over Jackson Hayes. Now, what is this going to do to Rudy Gobert and the Minnesota Timberwolves when it comes to defense? In my opinion, if they're starting Jared Vanderbilt, really not too much of a difference, because I feel that if you are the Minnesota Timberwolves coaching staff, you know that Jared Vanderbilt is not the greatest three-point shooter. And matter of fact, you would rather have him take all the shots than a Luka Doncic, a LeBron James, or an Austin Reeves. Like, you want those three players specifically not to take as many shots as they possibly can, and you want players who are weaker at the three-point shot and just basically just shots in general, and that's just going to be Jared Vanderbilt. Now, if Jared Vanderbilt starts to go off, well, then now we have a problem and where you can't keep Rudy Gobert on the court. But if I were the Timberwolves coaching staff, I would just say, hey, listen, leave Vanderbilt on the three, leave him in the corner. Just play the dunker spot and be ready to block some shots, because they're going to come and try to attack the paint. And I think the Timberwolves actually have a pretty good core of guards and wings that is going to be able to stay in front of at least Austin Reeves. So I think Austin Reeves is going to struggle, because even though they have Luka and LeBron James, they got Jaden McDaniels. But all jokes aside, Rudy Gobert is going to be a very interesting person to watch. He is a paradox of a player. And I think that even though he has many weaknesses into his game, and that even though he might not be the most well adept on offense, and honestly, I don't know what he does in the summer. Like, this is a side note. I know we always see like the clips of NBA players going hard and like the Rico Hines and all that type of stuff in the summer, but like, I just genuinely don't understand what Rudy Gobert does in the summer. He has not really improved his game outside of just being a guy that can jump high, get rebounds, and dunk. But that doesn't really, like, it takes skill, but it's not something that you would, traditionally look at in terms of skillfulness, right? It takes skill to do the things that he does, but what about the skills to, like, actually be in the post? What about the skills to actually, do more things? How about develop some type of a mid-range shot? You don't need a three-point shot, because if you don't have no mid-range, you can't even shoot a three. So I just don't understand what Rudy Gobert is doing in the summer, but hey, if it works for the Timberwolves, it works. But the issue, in my opinion, is that they have to basically patch up a hamstring issue where they are self-inflicting themselves because Rudy Gobert is on the court. And so you have to patch and make ways for that lineup to work that is just simply harder to do. And if you were me and you've been watching my videos, you would have heard that I've been said that even though I believe Rudy Gobert has a better value on the team than Karl-Anthony Towns, that he would have to go in order for the Minnesota Timberwolves to actually be somewhat decent. Because you know what happens when you have the floor just all the way spaced throughout. Look at the New York Knicks right now, where they had a point guard who loves being in the paint. But you know who can't be in the paint if he wants to thrive? Is a big. And so getting Karl-Anthony Towns makes a lot of sense for the New York Knicks. But for the Timberwolves, getting Julius Randle, who, I mean, I don't know, you might like the guy if you're a fan of him or you're a family member, but, you know, that's not my guy. That's not a guy that I'm going to take into battle. And we are going to see, like I said again, whether or not he delivers on his promise of being better and being a playoff performer. But right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to have to prove that Rudy Gobert deserves to be on the court, because I believe that he has the unique skill talent to make everything work in the way that they want. And so we'll see whether or not he will falter against small ball, or if he's going to dominate enough for him to close out games and win in a very efficient manner.